That's right.
But anyway, and I don't want to stop him from making money.
Doug Gottlieb can't work forever. I'm just saying it.
Right. But what I'm saying about Micah is I felt like he was too young to have a podcast on, in the NFL. He's only played 3 seasons. He had only played 2 when he started it. And most of the guys, LeBron James, veteran with rings. Draymond Green, veteran with rings. The Kelsey brothers, veterans with rings. Even guys like Pat Beverly, Paul George, they're veterans. They haven't won, but they're older guys in the league. Now, I know you got Jalen Brunson. Even he's been around, 6, 7 years. And Josh Hart, they have their podcast, the Knicks guys, the roommates. But I just feel like, get your feet wet, maybe win a championship, or at least be a veteran and mature a little bit before you have your podcast. And sure enough, Rob, the podcast seems to have rubbed some of his teammates, at least Malik Hooker, the safety, the wrong way. Hooker talked about it on Keyshawn Johnson's podcast, All Facts, No Breaks. And I believe Hooker was probably talking for several Cowboys, not just himself, but here's what he says.
The problem with it, my thing would be, though, for Micah, my advice would be for Micah would be, just make sure we're all right, and being where your feet are. Because if we're at work and, the run game's terrible, but you're doing a podcast every week and the run game is terrible, then, what are you really caring about? Are you caring about the crowd that, is watching your podcast? Are you caring about the success of our team and the Super Bowl that we're trying to reach?
All right, Rob G, kind of summarize this because this went back and forth. So summarize to us.
Come to me. You don't have to tell me that. Why don't you just come to me and tell me that? You don't have to embarrass me in public.
That's spot on, Rob.
Am I right?
That's half of it.
That's it, Chris.
Micah caught wind of the comments over the weekend, and he put out a response on Twitter, which he tweeted and deleted, which is never a good sign.
No.
But that doesn't even work. Like,
right, because now you screenshot it immediately.
Right.
Somebody got it. And here's what he tweeted, which was deleted. I just wish you had said this to me, but instead on some podcast. You got my number, family, and you my locker mate. So you could have said this any day. And you do realize I shoot the podcast on our off day. Why aren't we talking about everyone's preparations and focus?
But it's funny, though.
So you have a problem with Micah saying that, Rob?
No, I'm just saying, it's funny, though, because he said he had to find out about it on a podcast. But that's what he does, podcast. You know what I mean? That's the funny part.
But don't you think, I as much as I think, it'd probably be a good idea if Micah dropped the podcast, I do think he is right on the money. Like, bro, we're locker mates. We see each other every single day. Why don't you come to me and say something about the podcast? Like, Micah, look, man, little bro, because he said he's his little bro.
Micah said stuff about the podcast on his podcast, too, about stuff. I mean,
No,
Chris,
but my point is, if you, like me and you, if I went on a podcast and just said something, because Malik wasn't just ripping Micah, but he was saying some sensitive stuff. If I said, I wish Rob would do this and do that, instead of this and that, would you be like, why didn't you come to me? Why you got to say it on some podcast? Why don't you just say it to me? Yes, wouldn't you be like that?
I get that, but this is a different era. We talk about this all the time, Chris, about the social media, about people putting their business out. We've talked about this. Like this, you're right. In the old school, but that didn't seem to be the way that they the younger people operate. Cause you see stuff all the time on social, right? Like airing stuff out instead of just talking to people, right? It's easier to just put it out there and whatnot rather than have a conversation with people because people don't have those skill sets of dealing with people face to face. Would you agree with that a little bit?
Well, but
I know what you're
generation, but
I know what you're
saying.
Right
and the wrong way.
No, I know
something.
what you're
saying,
what I mean?
But
I'm just saying. But that's
not. That doesn't make. I hear you because that's what they're used to doing. But that's not good for the team or the relationship.
I get it, but I think I'm sorry, Chris. If I'm an owner, no podcasts that have to do with sports or whatever we're doing. You want to do one on baking on your off day. You want to do one on.
So you mean
garden.
even if it's a veteran or
no podcast,
champion?
No, because I don't see the bonus in it. I don't see how it helps you. I just don't.
I wonder if they could even make that rule.
Sure,
I don't know
can.
that you could even make that rule.
Sure, they can. Chris, you can set up any work rules you want. No,
and you might lose players because a lot of teams got guys with podcasts.
Chris, they do it.
I will say this:
new operations, like people work. Chris, you work 2 jobs. I work 3 jobs. You work 4 jobs. You know, whatever it is. There are places,
they can say,
where they say no. No, you only work here, and if you don't do that, you can't work here. Those are the rules when you come in.
What I would say,
that's all I'm saying,
is like if Jerry Jones, because this to me, and I've always said this, Jerry Jones sets the tone because he's running his mouth all the time. If Jerry Jones, Rob, came to the facility this summer and said, look, guys, I'm tired of not winning. We're going for it this year. It is football, period. I'm not going to be talking to the reporters outside the locker room after every game, any games. I'm not going to go on my radio show every Tuesday or whatever day it is of the week to talk about the team. I am going to leave it to the coaches and you guys to talk about the team. And Stephen Jones, the GM, he'll do his thing. It's all about football. So I'm stepping down and I'm setting an example. And I would like all of you to follow my example. Any of you that have podcasts, stop them. This year, it is about football. We're going to bring a Super Bowl to Dallas. I think that would be plausible. I think if Jerry did that, Rob, Micah and maybe any other guys that might have podcasts, I think they'd be willing to do that. But when he's running his mouth all the time, unnecessarily, then I think it's hard. I get that he's the one that writes the checks.
Well,
but it's hard to have guys buy into something like that.
Yeah, but he does. He has ultimate power. You remember during when the players wanted to kneel and if you kneel, you're not going to be a count and they didn't, and nobody.
Didn't he end up kneeling? Didn't they all kneel?
No, but I'm saying, but they didn't kneel at first.
Right.
Remember that, Chris? And he put that out there. You could have said, he can't tell me what to do. They were all afraid to death to kneel during that time, if you remember.
Well,
that.
they didn't need to be afraid because they
let
a star player not.
I know, but they didn't do it.
Kneel and see what he do.
But they didn't do it, is what I'm saying.
Because that's the thing. They have power as players, too.
Chris, we talk about it over and over. That you know what, you want to change stuff in the NFL, Chris, it take you 2 seconds.
Right.
Two seconds. If there's a coach who's abusive, if there's some issue, Chris, 2 freaking seconds. Go ahead. We dare you, right?
Yep.
We're not playing for you. We're not playing for you. What do you think you're gonna do? They're gonna fire the whole team? If everybody
it would only even take a star.
That's it.
Absolutely.
How did they get Donald Sterling out of the NBA, Chris? 2 seconds.
Yep.
Donald Sterling had been doing that mess forever.
Yep.
Okay, we're not going to play the playoff game. What? Oh, okay, we heard that. Okay, Donald Sterling, you're done. That's all it took.
Yeah,
I don't know. The podcast to me, I'm just not with it. I just think it's a distraction. I think it's unnecessary. I think you put the team in harm's way with people wanting to feel a certain way because you're talking about other players and just unnecessary stuff. The window that you have, Chris, to be a pro athlete is so small. If you're lucky, in the NFL, what is it, 3.5 years, people get a cup of coffee and a sweet roll. It's a small amount of time, a career-ending injury. All kinds of bad stuff can happen to you, right? So why not maximize your time with that? It's fine if it's at the end of your career, Chris, and you say to yourself, well, I think I want to get into the media or whatever. I just don't understand why they're hell-bent on doing what they've done. I
think it's a few things. I think, one, there is money there, although obviously they make a ton of money playing football. I think, two, though, Rob, guys love the attention. And as much as they're critical of what we do, they like it. Right? How many guys get into what we do when they're done?
I know.
Right?
All these guys who, when we're right, they hate the media and then they want to be
and
in.
then they do the same
It's
thing.
the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
I hear you in that, and I've said from the beginning that I don't think you should have the podcast. I agree. I don't know that I'd make a rule. I might talk to guys and suggest, hey, I don't think you should do it, whatever, if I were an owner or something. But I don't see any good that comes out of it for the team. I will say that. There's no, right? I mean, Rob, let's say if you or I did a separate podcast from this show on the show, like the whole topic of the podcast was the show, right? That I don't think that'd be good. Because it's like my wife and I laugh sometimes. We watch these reality shows. We don't really watch, but some we've seen. And they create drama, right? Because you got to create drama. Because otherwise people aren't going to watch it. It's not going to be interesting. And that's, Rob, this. There is an entertainment aspect of this too. All right? And so if you have a podcast, there is going to be a drive in you to make it entertaining.
Thank you.
To say something, right?
Chris,
something dramatic, something interesting.
What do we talk about?
Something to get the people into it.
But we talk about that all the time when we talk about, what is the football one that they do? Hard Knocks. Chris,
Yes.
when the camera's around, the camera, you play to the camera.
It's human nature.
It's human nature. You don't have a normal conversation that you would have when there's no camera there. It's like the show I used to say all the time. It's not a reality show. The name of the show was Bridezilla. How do you act, Chris, if you're a bride about to get married? Are you nice to the people? Do you yell at your groom, your bridesmaids? Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
The name of the show is Bridezilla. I gotta act like a bee in order to be on.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Did I ever tell you that? You ever remember that show Preachers of L.A.? I think it was
Yes.
Preachers of L.A.
They wanted you
So
on?
the guy that created that, wanted me and my family be on it.
Oh my God.
I was like, first of all, I'm not like a pastor. He was
Right.
like, nah, but you minister and blah, blah, blah. And, I was like, no way. I did talk to my family. We were all like, no way. Because, Rob,
I can't
they
see
want
you doing
drama.
that. Yes.
No, they want drama. First of all, my house is not that filled with drama.
But that's what they want.
Thankfully. But, you have to create some madness. I can't have a great relationship with my daughters and that be it. It's got to be they're mad at me. I didn't let them go out. They're yelling. They're talking behind my back. Me and my wife having issues. Like, that's what they want. Just a nice household is not going to sell. All right. So, and that's the same thing with podcasts, Rob. There's got to be some juice. And that's the temptation. So I do agree with you on that.